be like Jesus. Spirit, soul, and body like him. Now, I debated with myself whether to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to read Martha Robinson's testimony to you. Martha Robinson was technically the founder of the Zion Faith Home, but only because of what God did in her to answer the cry of her heart, which I've expressed here for you a few times during this weekend. The cry of her heart, Lord, what a shame that when people come to me, she and her husband were ministers, when people come to me, they get too much of Martha Robinson and they don't get much of Jesus. Have you ever thought that about yourself? Wouldn't it be nice if people could come to us and they would get Jesus? Wouldn't it? With no mixture, you know? The Lord dealt with me from Ecclesiastes more than once. No, it's Proverbs. As a fly in the ointment of the apothecary's oil, so is a little foolishness in him that is held in reputation for honor and wisdom. And you offer somebody an ointment, and all they see is the fly. Who wants it? You know, somebody pours you a glass of water and there's a fly swimming in it. You going to drink it? Well, you say there's a lot of good water in there. Yeah, but look at that fly. I'm not swallowing that fly. Well, God put it in Martha Robinson's heart. I want to know Jesus so well that when people talk to me and come for prayer and come for counsel, they get Jesus. They don't get me. And that prayer consumed her, and it was generated by the Holy Ghost. And it was a harbinger of what's coming in the world. What happened is true. And she wrote out some years later her testimony. And it goes like this. Way back in the beginning of this work, meaning the Zion Faith Home, when we prayed through to our death, we passed over into a change which was not like anything we'd ever heard of. It included everything from head to foot. We found out it was a taste of something. Did you get that? Everything from head to foot. We passed over. Let me back up. We found out it was a taste of something God is going to do in the last days. At that time, we did not understand that we had come into it by the crucifixion or death to self. In a moment, we were gone, and a greater one was there. Let Jesus' love pull you into that. In a moment, we were gone. And a greater one was there. Entire spirit and soul and body were in a new and divine control. We walked out of the natural into the spiritual in body as well as in soul. That was the experience God opened this work with. We dwelt in God for a period in a great mystery. We felt we had died, and Christ had come to dwell where we had been. Brother and sister, this is where God is going. But he's searching the alleys for rags. Anybody that'll say, okay, Lord, okay. At that time, there were mysteries we had gone through. We passed up into God's presence. Saw and heard things that God has never let us tell. A number of weeks of the mysteries of God that we don't dare utter. Frank told me yesterday that Manohar waited years before he told anyone what happened to him in one of his healing crusades. Never told me about it. I've known him all these years. People got in line for healing. The building couldn't contain the line. The line was out into the street. And everyone that went in was sick, and everyone that came out was healed. Every single one. And he never talked about it. You know, if I get one healing, you're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
People that know Jesus don't brag. Their boast is only in the cross. We had it in our nature to maintain an absolute reserve of private experience. We know that we had spent many, many long months before God in one great cry to God, let me die. We agonized before God and wept and called upon God, let me die. God got the light through to me that it would be a blessed thing to be utterly gone, and that was a real life. We passed over. It was a manifestation of the King's life. We knew only God and were hidden away in God. In such tremendous mystery, the very presence of God comes upon us, and we just feel bowed before God in that wonderful experience. It was the mystery of the indwelling Christ. He didn't explain it until I found him there and knew it was, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. I'm going to stop there. You know, years ago I started researching that, and that verse, Galatians 2:20. So I looked up all kinds of commentaries about it. And even the most devout commentators say there has to be just a little bit of figurative language here. He can't possibly mean what it sounds like. Everyone knows that there are limitations. This can't be quite the way we think of it. But he was wrong. He based it all on his own experience. Do you know how much you limit God based on your own experience?
A lot.
Can you say amen to that?
Amen.
Are you open to the fact that somebody might know God better than you? And that you have a lot to learn? And that you don't know everything? And that your basic mindset, your default mindset is unbelief? And you're not like a little child who believes everything Daddy tells him? That the block is from the neck up. And that your mind is where the devil comes in to replace God's thoughts with the devil's doubts. And you have a million reasons why you don't want to believe. Brother Manohar told me that he didn't talk to me about his experiences the first year that I met him because he was afraid I wouldn't believe him. But after he got to know me and heard about the Zion Faith Homes and Martha Robinson, he warmed up and he said, well, yes, I've been to heaven myself. And I remember looking at him, you've been to heaven? Yeah, many times. You're faced with something when you hear that, aren't you? You go, oh, wait a minute now. Just wait a minute now. And you find out how much skepticism there is in you about the things of God, so that when you read Ephesians 3 like we did last night, you stumble over that statement that you might be filled with all the fullness of God. You stumble over it because your mind says, no, it can't happen. It's not for this life. And you stumble over Galatians 2:20. Then nobody could really say, I am crucified with Christ, and actually live it. And to get it right, to say it right, it's not the Buddhist annihilation of existence, erasure of self-life, or the Hindu reincarnation and getting good karma until finally you come back a Brahman. It's just God's reality. I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. There's the perfect way to say it. And the life that I now live, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So that's why I gave you the paper, Made for God to be Possessed.